Hi, I'm Jay Arthur, and author of QI Macros, Lean Six Sigma Demystified for Hospitals, and so on. And I've been at this since 1990, so I have a little background in all these things. So today we're going to talk through the QI macros, and I just wanted you to kind of get a sense of what it'll do for you and how it's different from everything else. I'm going to turn off my webcam. You don't need to see me. All right, so here we are, and let's get started. So first thing is, you don't have to be a statistician to use the QI macros, right? That's not what I'm trying to do here, right? What I'm trying to make it is possible for the average Joe or Susie to do this. So you don't need to learn any of the formulas. And I'm telling you, I did a webinar like last month, and this woman said, well, we were in a class and they spent 3 days teaching us how the QI macros calculates the formulas for control charts. And I thought, well, that's just a stupid waste of time. You don't need to know the formulas. The software knows the formulas. You need to know how to analyze the charts. You don't need to learn decision trees because I built all the decision trees right into the QI macros. So that takes out a lot of problem right there. So all you have to do is select data with your mouse and click on one of our QI macros, and it'll choose the right chart or stat automatically. So here's some data. So all you have to do is select data with a mouse, go to the QI macros menu, and if you know what you're doing, you can go pick any one of our charts, or you can actually go ahead and click the control chart wizard. The control chart wizard will look at that data and go, well, that must be an individuals and moving range chart. And so it'll go calculate all your limits, and the X chart's in control. You see all these red points down here. Well, that says there's some out of control stuff going on. And that's probably hugging. Something's hugging the center line there. Now you can also take that data. If you leave a blank row in between there, you could select all of this data. The control chart wizard will again go draw this, and now it'll show your before and after calculations. So our after is in control, our before is in, our after here and the range chart is in control. And that's all there is to it. It's that hard. Right? So here's some healthcare data. This is falls per 1,000 patient days. Again, if you just select your data with the mouse, click on the control chart wizard, it'll go draw your chart for you. See, we have a couple of out of control points here, and then a downward trend. Now, once you've created a chart, notice there's the QI macros menu up here. Well, when you click on the chart itself, it adds a new chart menu up here for the QI macros. So I can actually come in here and say, I want to show a process change at this one particular point. If I click on process change in the chart menu, it'll go recalculate our limits. And then we could redo stability analysis. So here we are in control beforehand, then we made an improvement, and now it's much better. And again, you could redo stability analysis here, and we'd see we only had 1 point that was out of control. So this makes it really easy to show that your performance improvement actually worked. All right, so pretty simple and straightforward. Now, if you have more data and you want to draw other kinds of charts, the QI macros we actually have, you can access our test data. So if you don't know what your test data should look like, you can click on our test data menu here. And let's say I want to run a Pareto chart or something. I could come down here to Pareto. Make that a little bigger so you can see it. So here we have a column of labels, and here we have a column of defects. And again, you can select these by just holding down the control key to select the second column. Click on QI Macros Pareto chart. It'll ask you if you want to do more than 9 bars, which is sort of the default. And I didn't. So here's folded flaps, bent and damaged, and carton will not open. All 3 of these are more than 20%. So the QI macros will highlight those as something you should focus on. All right, so it's pretty simple to draw. Nice Pareto chart. And again, this is the way Ishikawa drew them with the line coming out of the top of the box instead of the middle of the box. So we're about the only Ishikawa compliant Pareto chart I've ever seen. I don't think I've seen one done somewhere else. So now, if you have multiple columns, so we have line 1, line 2, line 3, we could say Pareto chart. And it'll go do all 4 Pareto charts for me. So here's line 1, line 2, line 3, and there's our little total defects plot down here. But you can see line 3 has mainly folded flaps. Line 2 has bent and damaged, carton will not open, bent and damaged, carton will not open. So now we know what we might want to work on in each one of these particular things. Now, if you have a pure column of text data like this, if you click on just the label at the top and click on Pareto chart, it'll go count those all up and draw that Pareto chart for you. So that's like 3 different ways you can do a Pareto chart in the QI macros. A single column, multiples, or you can actually just do it from text data straight. Right, and so then once you have that, well, then you could come in and you could say, well, I have a fishbone diagram. That's my next step, is to create my improvement project. And we have a fill-in-the-blanks fishbone diagram. And in here, you're going to put in your, make that a little bigger, you're going to put in your problem statement. So during some time, Pareto accounted for some percent of total problems. So in our case, it's going to be folded flaps accounted for, I don't know, 39% of the problem, which is higher than desired and caused customer dissatisfaction, rework, whatever. And then you put in all of your different whys. Now, I'm just going to plug in a manufacturing example. This is from the American Society for Quality. It's what they have on their website. So you can actually go through and check your 5 why logic, because I find people don't get their logic right. But once you're ready, you can just click on Create Fishbone, and it'll create that fishbone from that material. And then you can highlight any root causes using one of these little red ovals. So that's kind of a speed tour of control charts, Paretos, fishbones. We also have countermeasure matrices and action plans. And those are predominantly what I use in most of my improvement projects. So any questions about that up to this point, you can just type into the little question box beside and go to webinar, and that will get you, that'll come up to me, and then I can answer those for you. So pretty straightforward, right? Just select data, click a button, get a chart. And if you're not quite sure what to do with your data, you can always select data with your mouse and click on our chart wizard, and the chart wizard will go try and figure out what to do with that as well. And so, and it's going to say, oh, well, that must be an XMR chart. So the same sort of principle applies here. And someone asked if I'm going to go over data mining. I'm going to do that in just a little bit. I want to cover a few things first. So that's the process. Pretty simple. And let's go open up some more data. I'm going to cover statistical tools just for a second. Now, again, because I work predominantly in service industries, I don't do a lot of statistics, and I find it's not that valuable in the service industries, simply because we want to be able to show improvements. But so here you have hardwood concentration of different links and values, and if you know what you want to run, you can actually go choose it from one of our pull-down menus here. But if you're not sure, you can click on the stat wizard, and the stat wizard will say, what can I do with that data? And it'll do data normality or descriptive statistics, check the variances, and tell you that the means are different, but the variances are the same. And so it's actually gone out and done descriptive statistics, and found that the data is normal. It did chi-square because these are all integers. You know, I'm not a mind reader. Levine's test for variances, and then it did the ANOVA. Once it knows that it has normal data, it can go ahead and do that. And let's see. Someone asked if they could get a copy of the presentation at the end. Yes, we will send that out to you. And all of these features are available in QI Macros 2016. The data mining wizard, not as much. And if you have 2016, you have version 1.0 of the data mining wizard, and not version 2, which came out in January of 2017. All right, so that's a little bit about how to do all of these things. Now, once you know, one of the things I found is you don't want to keep running a macro every day. And so I created a bunch of control chart templates. Now, in here, if you wanted an XMR 5-pack, once you open our templates, these are just fill-in-the-blank templates. And you'll see at the bottom, there's different kinds. We have rolling charts and scrolling charts and medians and fixed limits and short-run charts. But the idea here is that once you have the template, well, then you just type in your new data, and the chart will grow as you go. Now, this makes it really easy to maintain and manage the control phase. And the big place where most companies fall down is in the control phase. They fail to put in a measurement system to monitor what's going on and make sure that the process stays. And 6 months later, they've fallen back to their previous performance level. And it's really kind of sad, but that's what happens. All right, so these fill-in-the-blank templates here will enable you to do any of these charts, C charts, G charts. G charts are things that are rare event kind of things. They use these a lot in healthcare. And someone just asked if QI Macros works with Excel on an iPad. Only the template part works. And we sold those for a while, but there wasn't a lot of traction. So I would recommend if you want to use the QI Macros, you go full Excel on a PC or a Mac, because it runs in both, and that'll take care of it for you. Now let me introduce you to another power tool, which is, people said, well, how do I put all of these things together into a dashboard? And so a few years back, I built some dashboards to do this. And in our data sheet, this is where you put in your data by chart title 1, chart title 2, just keep going. If you have spec limits, you would put them up here. And again, we have an average chart down here. I'm just going to demonstrate that. And you can hit the previous and the next button. So the next button will take us to chart title 2. And once you have everything you want in here, all you have to do is click on Create Dashboard. And what it'll do is go build a dashboard of the X charts. And so here's chart title 1, chart title 2. And then you can come back in next month, enter more data. So, and let's call that 7. Click on Refresh Charts. And it'll go add that new data point into your control chart dashboard. Now what does this do? Well, this enables us very easily to start tracking all of our key performance indicators. So you could have a financial control chart dashboard. And I can't tell you how many companies waste a lot of time and energy chasing why one number's up and one number's down, when it's just in statistical process control, and you should leave it all alone. And then they actually miss when there's some sort of weird thing that jumps off of the the reservoir for them. Someone just asked, are the QI macros for Mac and PC the same? Yes, they are. So the templates and the menus and everything else are identical. And you'll need Excel 2016 for the Mac. Mac dropped support of 2011, which used to have a pull-down menu. So you'll need Excel 2016 to make that work for you. All right, so those are the control chart templates. And we have chart templates for other things. So if you need a stem and leaf plot, you can get in there. I never use those. If you need capability templates for histograms or whatever, you can get in there. I'm going to close a few of these things so we're not drinking up too much energy. And I'm going to go grab some AIAG data. Now here you can see we have some diameters of pistons or something from the AIAG second edition. And we have spec limits, upper and lower spec. Now you can select this with your mouse again, click on histograms, and you can use the histogram with CP and CPK, or you could use the capability suite. The capability suite will prompt you for your upper and lower spec limits. Guess I better type that in right. And it'll go do an X chart, an R chart, and a histogram, and calculate your CP and CPKs, which in this case are over 1.66, which is 5 sigma. So these will enable you to very quickly handle capability analysis, which is a big thing in manufacturing. Now, I make a lot of distinction about manufacturing and service industries because we don't do a lot of sampling in service industries. There's not a lot of capability analysis because most of the time what we're tracking is cycle time. And cycle time is non-normal and you only have an upper spec limit. So, but you get the idea that all the tools are in here to assist you in creating an improvement project. And we could do other things. So for example, we have things like box and whisker plots, and we could group those by column. And that shows us what all these different parameters are doing. And there was a question about, is there a rule of thumb to think about when using histograms in service industries? And let's see if I have some data in here. Let's go back. So where's our days? I had some good. Okay, so here's time to thrombolytics. This is from Davis Balistracci's book, Data Sanity. So if we select that data and we only have a upper spec limit, we could come in and say histogram. We're not sampling. So our upper is 60, and we have no lower spec, so we hit cancel. It'll estimate the number of bars. And so here you can see we have this, you know, how much time do you want to wait for getting medicine to patients? 0, right? And ideally, under 60 minutes means that this is for stroke patients, and this will help prevent long-term damage if they get it done in 60 minutes. And so out here somewhere you can see some patients are not getting their thrombolytics till an hour later. Well, that probably means they have some brain damage caused by the stroke. So that might be a way to look at histograms really for service industries. Anytime you're doing cycle time, you're going to have an upper spec limit, no lower spec limit. And here you can see that they're not really making the grade. They should have a CPK of at least 1. And so somebody just asked, so you press cancel when there's no lower limit or no upper limit either. Yeah, so that's the structure in here. So it's going to prompt you for things. And again, no USL, just click cancel. And so that says no lower spec, and then off we go. 0 is not your lower spec in this scenario, right? Just that it has no bottom, right? It's just the floor is non-existent. So if we could do it instantaneously, that would be good. So anyway, hopefully that gives you some ideas about all of the charts and tools we have. These are all macros. We have lots of fill-in-the-blank templates. We have CP and CPK templates. If you have tracking multiple columns or multiple attributes in a given product. We do have some stat templates over here for non-normal data. Again, I don't get into a lot of non-normal data. I don't worry about it because control charts by nature are very robust to non-normal data. So if you just ignore that and realize, what do I want to do here? So I've been taking you through some things. So we have charts and wizards. We have the fill-in-the-blank templates. We covered the statistical tools. In a minute, we'll get into the data mining tools. And so one of the things I think people don't understand is you don't need to know everything there is to know about calculations and formulas. What you need to do is understand what patterns are we trying to achieve. So if you have a control chart that looks like this, what do we want to do? Well, we either want to reduce the variation, right, so that we've shrunk the amount of variability around that center line, or you want to move the center line. You either want to move it down or you want to move it up. And that's essentially the nuts and bolts of what you want to do with a control chart. Do you need to know the formulas? No. Do you need to know the decision trees? No. You need to know what you're trying to do with your control chart. All right, so that's pretty simple. And again, the control chart wizard will figure that all out for you. And our control chart, our chart menu will enable you to tweak the chart once you're done with it. And you've seen all the unstable points. We can tweak those, show process changes, and Pareto charts. We talked about that. There's over 40 different kinds of charts on this menu. And we'll do all the math and draw the graph for you. So here's a lot of the tools that you're going to need: control charts, Pareto's, histograms, fishbones, action plans, flow charts, value stream mapping, hundreds of fill-in-the-blank templates, and we haven't quite talked about those yet. We talked about the one set of fill-in-the-blank templates, but you know, if you need to do value stream mapping, we have a value stream map that's very similar to the fishbone. So once you've entered your processes and things in here, you can click on Create Value Stream Map, and it'll go build your value stream. Or you can do it more manually. We have a lot of different symbols in here and some examples of different kinds of value streams. This is an emergency room, spaghetti diagrams. So all of these things are available to you because Excel has really a pretty good, like a mini Visio built in. So if you go into Insert Shapes, you can add any shape and create any drawing that you want. And you can actually connect things as well. So it's a pretty slick tool for doing a lot of things like that. And we have different kinds of diagrams, theory of constraint clouds, critical to quality trees, work breakdowns. We have project management tools like, yeah, there's the work breakdown and their action plans. And if you're into automotive, we have things like the A3 report. Come on, A3, what's your problem? Every once in a while, there it goes. This took it a while. All right, so here's your A3 diagram with a fishbone diagram, and you just fill in the blanks here, whatever. And all of our fill-in-the-blank templates work this way. And if you need to do design of experiments or gauge R&R or PPAP forms for automotive groups, everything is hidden down in here. There's even a QFD house of quality. Not a great one, but and somebody just asked, where do I find the value stream mapping template? It's under our templates under lean tools. So VSM is really a lean tool. All right, so there are hundreds of templates in here. And every one of our templates, so like for the gauge R&R, you'll find that we have the standard 4th edition, We have one that'll do 30 parts. We have type 1 gauge R&R, attribute gauge R&R. All of the templates are out here. And you can also learn how to use all these things right online using from our website. So right here under training, you'll find QI Macros free training resources. If you have somebody that needs to watch this thing as well, they can come in here to our QI Macros webinar and rewatch essentially what is the nuts and bolts of this webinar. But we have the ability, you can come in here at any time of the day, night, or Saturday or Sunday, and click on one of these things, and it'll load an example and a video that you can just watch to find out how it all works. So that's a pretty easy resource to keep you. You can learn anything you want to know on the website. And if you don't know where anything is, if you just type in something, it'll take you to do one of our spreadsheets or one of our links out here, and then you can go watch more about that. All right, so that's our free training online. And there was a question about what kind of charts do I see normally used in healthcare? And so that one's really straightforward. Hang on. Let me close some of these. And again, I'll open up some test data. I'm going to go down into, we have all kinds of things in here, the healthcare data guide data, the healthcare SPC data. And so essentially what you're going to see in healthcare is the XMR chart, or you're going to see potentially, where's ours? You might see C charts. You're going to see a lot of P charts. And so in this case, no, we can't have more than one C section per whatever. So you're going to see P charts and U charts. And you will also see G charts. Where's our G chart? So G charts are for things that are what are called never events, things that shouldn't happen. So if I come in here, I can type in when the next never event occurred. And let's go 11 and 12. Yeah, so it's 38 days between never events. And this could be things like retained foreign objects or wrong site surgeries, etc. That makes sense? And so, and all of the titles are linked in here. So if you type it here, it'll show up on the chart. So hopefully that gives you some kind of clarity. I always see individuals, P charts, U charts. Sometimes we see the P prime and the U prime and the G chart. And lots of Pareto charts, okay? Lots of Pareto charts. Because what we're trying to do is figure out how to mistake-proof healthcare, right? Healthcare actually, oh, leave me alone. Healthcare actually has way too many defects and mistakes and errors on an ongoing basis. All right, so that's kind of a lot about all of our charts and macros and fill-in-the-blank templates and statistical tools. And in a moment, I'm going to get into data mining because I think that's really a powerful feature of the QI macros. Any questions about the charts or the templates or the statistics before we get into the data mining piece? If so, just type them into your little question mark bar down there, and we'll get to it. All right, so I don't see any, so I'll just keep going. And again, feel free to jump in with questions whenever you want to. Somebody asked if we have a macro for swim lanes. Well, we don't have a macro, but we do have a fill-in-the-blank. Where's our flow chart with swim lanes? So under lean tools, We have flow charts with swim lanes. And so this is kind of a top-down vertical one, and this is the horizontal one. And then all you have to do is like copy this thing and then paste it in here somewhere. And then I could drag that down here somewhere, change that to be some other number, right? And then all I need is the shapes that are connectors, which are these guys here. And I could connect this to that guy. And then I can drag and drop this thing around anywhere I want to. So that's our swim lanes, fill in the blank templates. There's a question in here, do we have any suggested things for specifically manufacturing or whatever? And let me think. I thought we had these kind of separated out in here. Yeah. So if you check that, you're going to actually find our Six Sigma for manufacturing, and it'll talk about tools and things to use in manufacturing. And then probably also if we did a search in here for healthcare, there'll probably be another, yeah, I don't know. It's probably in here somewhere. But you'll be able to go find how to use lean tools to create hospitals. So anyway, if you just go search in here, you'll be able to usually find specific things around that. So anyway, I hope that helps you kind of figure out where to go surfing for some of this stuff. Let me close our folded flaps diagram. And let's go back to the data mining wizard. So if you have raw data by date, so that's the when, the line is where, the defect is what happened. So anytime you have the when, where, what, why, how, who, how much for each type of defect that occurred. So on January 2nd, 2014, line 2 had a bent and damaged flaps problem. QI Macro's data mining wizard will turn this into an entire improvement story. Pretty crazy, huh? And so it will actually take all your data and build the entire project for you. Now, I used to spend hours and sometimes days taking data that looks like this by line, type of defect, and doing pivot tables, and then turning those pivot tables into control charts and Pareto charts. And then back in 2016 and 2017, I automated that because I was lazy. And I'd rather do it in minutes instead of hours or sometimes days. So if you click on a single column date, and then I'm going to hold down the control key and pick another heading, defect, and click on data mining wizard, the data mining wizard will go out and pivot that data and turn it into control charts, Pareto charts, and you name it. So it took all of that data, summarized all of it, and you can see our defects by date here are running about 8.5. Too big. About 8.5 defects a day. And then it'll start drilling down. And so defect by type of defect, well, again, here's our big folded flaps defect, bent and damaged, carton will not open. And then it'll take folded flaps and drill down into the big bar on that Pareto chart. So defect folded flaps by line. So line 3 has most of the defects that are folded flap related. And then it'll take the big bar here and write you a fishbone diagram. So during 2014, line 3 accounted for 79% of defect folded flaps and caused waste and rework. Well, that's an entire improvement project, and we did that in 20 seconds, right? And again, I used to spend hours and sometimes days doing this. But it won't stop there. It'll start looking at it the other way. And so it'll go look at defects by line, and line 3 has the most defects. So if I was going to put resources anywhere, right, and I just recorded an improvement insight video about the one thing, right? You can only fix one thing a week, right? We want to start with the big bar in the Pareto chart. And one of the mistakes I see people make is they stop here instead of drilling down. Now, once you drill down into line 3, again, we find that folded flaps are the biggest contributor to overall defects on line 3. So you can get lost trying to fix everything else, but let's just take the big bar. And then again, it will create another fishbone diagram that shows you folded flaps accounted for 39.5% of line 3 defects. And so what this does is takes your data and turns it into a variety of improvement stories that it can find. And then it's up to you to decide how you best want to take that and move it forward. But I used to spend an afternoon trying to teach people how to do this, and I thought, well, why don't we just automate that? I'm coming to this idea of agile Lean Six Sigma, where the software the wizards do all this heavy lifting for you, and you just look at the charts or look at the output and say, what do we want to fix, and go fix it. So maybe we don't need to know everything we teach in green belt and black belt training to be able to get people productive. And, I saw a presentation by Christus Health, and they started out with green belt training, and then after a while what they did was they started doing little one-day yellow belt classes, but the one-day yellow belt classes, everybody was getting immediate results, and so they were finding something to fix that day in that room, getting something done. And then they kept doing more and more of those, and those became very productive. And out of the people who went through the one-day yellow belt, some people matriculated into green belt and took on bigger, more complex cross-functional projects. So that's a pretty different approach. And I think, the QI macros with the chart wizards, well, let me run that. Chart wizards and the data mining wizards, stat wizards, these things will do most of the heavy lifting for you, and then you can decide what do you want to fix and get on with it. So that's the data mining wizard. Again, it's going to turn raw data like this into an entire improvement project in a matter of sections, and then you have to go figure out what to do with it. Now, sometimes the hardest part of this is actually finding this data, but I found that in healthcare, it's in medical records data or billing data or service records, or all of these things are known. There's data out there, and all the big things will export data into Excel. And so once you get it into Excel, we can then help you turn that into an improvement project. So if you have data that looks like this is denied insurance claims in a hospital. They could be worth $5 million a year. I help one hospital save a ton of money, right? If you have data that looks like this, and this is scrap data in a manufacturing plant, and again, everybody thinks their business is special, and I don't. There's either defects, or there's scrap, or there's a rework, and as soon as I can figure out what the correct name for that defect is, it could be a patient fall or a pressure ulcer, or it could be a rework of a piston or something like that. Once I understand what that is, then we can start to pull that together. And this data was actually worth $1 million a year. So the bigger your business, the more of this stuff is around, and the easier it is to fix this. So I'm going to encourage you to start from that raw data, right, and start turning these things into big improvement projects. All of the multi-million-dollar projects I ever worked on started with pivot tables. And so now I've automated the production of the improvement projects. Now we can just get on with fixing stuff. And so we talked about all the templates and the dashboards. So I hope you kind of get this idea that you don't have to be a statistician. You don't have to be a geek. Right? When I was in the phone company, I always was trying to think about how am I going to help the manager who has no math background or the lineman, working out on a telephone pole, how am I going to help that person be successful with improvement without having to teach them everything on the planet, right? So that's a pretty powerful thing. So we just had a question about using the word count routine. And again, the word count routines, sometimes we have data that looks like this. So these are comments that come out of like a call center. I want you to think of all call centers as a rework center, right? If everything worked flawlessly, nobody would have to call us and we wouldn't have to fix anything, right? And in my business, I keep trying to find ways to prevent the need for people to call us to ask us a question. Not winning all of them, but I've cleaned up a lot of them. And so if you have data that looks like this, you might want to know, is there some sort of pattern to what's in this data? And the way you do that is, so we still have the pivot table wizard, but we have a word count wizard that'll take that, parse all of that into 1- and 2-word phrases, pivot them, and reorganize them to see if there's something going on in here. So single words, it says dupe. DOS stands for date of service. Reject, day, same, multiple day, visits. Right, so over here, DA reject, reject dupe, dupe data service, multiple visits, same day, data service multiple. No matter how they typed it in, the pattern surfaces that we're getting all these calls about duplicate data service or visits, multiple visits on the same day to a hospital emergency room. Well, it turned out this had everything to do with our $5 million savings. The patient came into the emergency room, was admitted to a nursing unit, but the charges for the emergency room were not paired up with the actual nursing suite. And so there were 2 different bills going out as opposed, and all the insurers said, no, you can only have 1 bill for 1 day. And so when we figured that out, then they figured out how to fix the billing so that all of these things came out together. So that's what the word count wizard can do, is it can take all of your raw data, things that come out of a call center, and I've done this with, tens of thousands of these things, and we always usually come out with some sort of Pareto pattern of what's the top thing that's hitting us. So that might be an interesting thing to explore if you have a lot of call center comments, and you can go pick and choose what those columns are and then use the word count wizard to summarize them for you. And if you think you need more phrases, you can actually go in and extend these formulas down, and then you can actually do a pivot table on that and find out more about it. But I've usually found 1 or 2 words is more than enough to solve your problem. So that's a little bit about the word count wizard. And again, it's down here under our text and data mining. Thanks for that question. All right. And so pretty slick, huh? And again, I keep trying to figure out how to automate all this stuff so that I don't have to do more work. I'm basically lazy so that when I work with clients, I can get things done more quickly. And we have a lot of frontline workers that use these tools. They actually take the QI macros, put them out on the assembly line, and people enter data as they're running, or they have, there's ways to hook up gauges through gauge interfaces to type things directly into our fill-in-blank templates. So pretty simple. And so these things, this has nothing to do with how smart you are or anything else. And people have found, one person found it eliminated 75% of their documentation time. It cuts lots of time. And then the other thing too is you don't need to spend a fortune to get it done, right? And you can train anyone in minutes. Now some of our competitors, it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 days to learn how to use them. but not with the QI macros, right? You can just fill in the blanks and off you go. So that's something to think about is, if you're, when I think about Six Sigma, there's Excel-based tools, and then there's higher-end tools like Minitab and Jump. And your black belts and your master black belts may need Minitab and Jump if you're in manufacturing, but in healthcare, probably not. And then to put in the control phase of your process, you're going to have to leave some control charts behind and some tools behind for people to monitor the process. Otherwise, in 6 months, they'll be back to the way they were before you fixed it. So the QI macros are a great tool to help do that. So focus on removing delay, reducing delay and defects, and I call it deviation. And you can get the QI macros and download it from our website. And you can also reach out to me at j@qimacros.com or support@qimacros.com. There was a question about, is there a forecasting feature in the QI macros? And I do not, because Excel actually has some forecasting tools built in here. And I forget, I haven't chased them very far, but they have the ability to project things. And so I had to think about, the QI macros, is it about fixing stuff, or is it about projecting things, the future? Is it about fixing what's wrong in the present and the past, or is it about doing other things to project things in the future? So we don't do things like Monte Carlo simulation. Go buy another tool that does that, because that's about trying to imagine how to reinvent something. That's not what we do. All right. So, and if you actually search, I looked this up the other day. Where's our? We go out of here and so if you need to create a forecast in Excel, there's lots of articles about how to go about doing that out here. So again, that's something that Excel does. So I try not to do things that Excel already does, because that would be a just a confusion, I think. Even though I have done a few of them, but so other questions about QI macros or about any of our tools, the macro charts, the fill-in-the-blank templates, the statistical tools, the fill-in-the-blank improvement tools, any of our data mining tools. We do have some tools in here to help you stack and restack data, because sometimes your data is not in the right format and you might have to flip it or do something with it to make it more usable. And again, we have a lot of examples out on our website. And under QI macros, if you go to our QI macros tour, this will take you out to various places on our website so that you can actually go look at how to go about using the tools. All right. And again, I had another question about the VSM tool. It's under Lean Tools. So, all right. Well, that's the QI macros, kind of a high-speed tour. There's a lot of stuff out here, but in general, I use the data mining wizard, the control chart wizard, the Pareto chart, and these three tools right here 99% of the time. And so that makes it, there's a lot of power here, but you have to figure out which stuff you want to pick. Now, one of the things you can do, and nobody tells you this because it's kind of hidden, is you can right-click on any one of these things and say, add to my quick access toolbar. And what that'll do is add a little button up here that will give you that chart. And let me close this for a second. And I think we had some data open. Nope. Get the Pareto chart open again here. So we have some data. Now that I've added the Pareto chart up here to my quick access toolbar, I can click here and it'll go do a Pareto chart for me. So that's one way to kind of simplify this menu, is to create your own quick access menu up here, and that'll allow you to do things really easily. So there's a question about how do we do infection rates per 1,000 device days. So I'll go back into my data. Is there a way to do that in the QI macros? The answer is yes. And so here you see that we have patient falls, right? Let me make that a little bigger. And then we have our total patient days. And then what you have to do is convert your total patient days, or total, what was that? Device days. So this could be device days. And this is our total device days. And this could be infections. And so this becomes infections over device 1,000 device days. And in here you can see the formulas up here for how to calculate all of that. So you're going to have to create the calculations. There's no magical answer to how to do that. But again, this information, these examples, all exist. So here's VAP rate, infection over event days, and that's been calculated in here. So if you go into the QI macros and go into our test data for healthcare, you will actually find some pretty good examples about how to create those formulas, and then this is what we would want to chart. Yeah, so I forget exactly, somebody's asking about the VSM. I forget exactly when we added the value stream map in there. The automated one is probably in the last year or 6 months or so. Otherwise, it's just a straight drawing kind of tool. But you can always upgrade at the QI macros. If you purchased in the last 5 years, you can upgrade at a discounted rate. So you can always get the new stuff, because we're always working on new stuff, to make it better, faster, cheaper, simpler, easier for the average person to be able to be successful in quality improvement. All right, so those were some various examples. What else can I answer for you? All right, well, we're pretty close to the end of this session. And again, if you have questions, email support@qimacros.com. You can download our free trial. If you already have it, that's good. If you want to upgrade, you can give us a shout or go to qimacros.com/upgrade. I think that'll take you to the right place. And these things are just make life easy, right? I want to make life easy for the quality improvement professional to get results. So, questions? All right, well, I'll stay on for another few minutes. If you have questions, stay on. Shoot them in through the question bar, and if not, thanks for your time, and let us know how we can help you be more successful with the QI macros. All right, thank you all. So there's a question about, can I clarify which functions require Microsoft Excel 16? Our software is compatible with Excel 2010, 2016, 2019, 365 for the PC. And then it's compatible with Excel 16 for the Mac and Excel 19 for the Mac. 19 is going to be out here shortly. So we're always completely compatible for about a 10-year window. So that's I think that answers your question. If not, ask me again in a different way. Is there anything in QI macros that can help with reliability? Yeah, if you have Excel 2013 and you have the QI macros after 2013, then you'll be compatible, Diane. Is there anything that can help with reliability? We do have a few tools in here, but again, we're not going for reliability per se, so maybe failure modes and effects analysis. You know, you might need some regression analysis and some other things. Again, if you're starting to build a spacecraft or electronic medical equipment, you might need some help with that. We also have our Weibull histograms, which will help you with figuring out when your failure rates start to kick in and things of that nature. But it's not designed specifically for reliability support. Where's our website? There we go. Yeah, so and yeah, so here's our page on compatibility of the QA macros, if anybody has a question. Question is, do we have a reference of our QI macros that explains each of these? Essentially, it's all underneath our QI macros training resources here. So if you come in here, you can find them all. If you search for anything on our search bar, you'll find everything there is to know about our various QI macros tools. And what does key tools do? Yeah, so if you go under the QI macros key tools, it's going to show what all of our capability charts are and other charts as well. So all of the information about what's in the QI macros lives on the website, and hopefully we've made it easily accessible for you. Does that help, Gilberto? All right. Well, thank you all so much. We're coming to the end of our time. Yes, we will. We'll get an email out to you with a copy of the presentation, and again, a link to the pre-recorded webinar, which you can share with other people. And I want to thank you all for your time, and thanks so much.